minority stake in IDBI Bank, and the board of India's largest insurer today did approve the proposal to buy up to 51% NPA-stricken public sector lender. The move comes within a week after insurance regulator, the IRDAI, that gave a one-time exemption to LIC for breaching the 15% investment cap in a single company. Now, it is not clear still whether LIC will have to make an open offer for IDBI Bank's minority shareholders. The Department of Economic Affairs Secretary Subhash Garg, who attended the LIC board meeting as the government representative, says it is inconsequential as the public float is as less as 5%.
Technicalities apart, a large section of market players and economists believe it is a raw deal for LIC's policyholders. For one, this is not the first time the government is tapping LIC's reserves for its fund requirements and bailout of PSU divestment. Questions have been also raised about IDBI's high loan delinquency rate, which stands at close to 26% now. Is it LIC's job to bail out failed banks? Have regulators like IRDAI become a political tool in the hands of the government? Will the infusion of capital by LIC really help IDBI Bank stage a turnaround? LIC's acquisition of IDBI Bank and what it means to the public sector insurers, millions of shareholders and the economy at large. That's the topic of discussion on the first leg of the India development debate tonight. Joining us on the show, S.B. Mathur, former chairman LIC, R.K. Nair, former member of IRDAI, Syed Zafar Islam, representing the BJP. He's also on the board of state-owned companies. Gaurav Vallabh, a spokesperson of the Congress party. Syed Zafar Islam, if I may start off with you, simple question. Is it LIC's job to bail out failed banks in the country?
The question that Sandeep's really asking, Zafar, is that is it LIC's job to bail out failed banks in the country?
Well, you have to see, LIC always, strategically it's a best fit. Secondly, it is available in the market. I mean, the LIC wanted to buy a bank and the bank is available for anyone to buy at a very, very good pricing. I think it's a board has seen that it's a good buy, strategically it's a best fit. Then what is the harm? I mean, I don't see any harm because it's a win-win for both IDBI Bank as well as for LIC.
Okay. Now the government has been using LIC for all its fund requirements. It's almost like LIC is sitting with a blank check to meet the government's revenue obligations, whether to meet divestment shortfall or bailout of PSU IPOs. And you know, the irony is that all of this behavior really predates this government. This was a behavior that one saw in the previous government as well. LIC seems to be sitting with a blank check for the finance ministry to turn to it to come to the rescue to meet some of these shortfalls. Mr. Mathur, are you going to agree with me that LIC has been misused time and again to step in when it doesn't really warrant to, when it doesn't really require to? Let me get across Mr. Mathur first.
Well, I would not like to comment on what has happened in the past. There may have been some cases where PSU issues were supported by LIC in a larger measure than would warrant. But in this case is totally different from other cases. This is the purchase of a bank which is coming, as Mr. Nair said, at a very reasonable valuation. NPAs are high, but NPAs are spread across the entire banking sector, which means that there is something wrong at a macro level, not necessarily at a particular bank level. If IDBI Bank level NPAs are marginally higher, then its valuation is proportionately lower. So LIC is getting it at a good price. And banks and insurance have lot of synergy. And LIC is not only just a bank, it also has an asset management company and a housing finance company, which is the second largest housing finance company. So a lot of synergies could be brought around this purchase, which is coming at a very reasonable price. No doubt, capital infusion will be required.
Sure.
But under normal circumstances, to acquire a similar bank, LIC would have had to pay a much larger sum.
Okay, so we've got allow me to interrupt you there, Mr. Mathur, and let me bring in on board Gaurav Vallabh, who I'm sure is going to see red with the deal that's happened and agree with some of the questions we're raising. Gaurav Vallabh, I want you to respond to the point made there by Syed Zafar Islam. Mr. Mathur, who's been chairman of LIC, also believe it's an asset that's coming cheap. What's wrong? I want to respond to that, but I'm also slipping in a simple question, which is that even as you try and take a high moral ground on how LIC is being misused, the fact is, and the unfortunate fact of the matter is, that LIC is being misused by government after government, and this predates this government. You have used LIC repeatedly to meet divestment shortfall. You're not meeting a divestment target. Use LIC. A PSU IPO is being failed. A follow-on public offer is not being failed. Use LIC. I mean, the institution has been used repeatedly to serve political purposes.
See, there are two differences, Sandeep. Number one difference, that in this deal, the policyholders' direct money is involved. Earlier, the LIC's own profit, past profits were used for investing in other companies. Second issue, this time it is not only that you are buying in a bank, you are violating Insurance Act, you are violating SEBI guidelines, you are violating IRDAI guidelines. Although this government is famous for damaging the constitutional and the judicious bodies, like SEBI is saying that no investor company and no investee company should have a mutual fund arm together. Here both LIC and IDBI are having their mutual fund arms. Second point, LIC is saying that I am going to get the benefit of 2000 branches. I am asking, LIC is having a different model. It's not via the branches, it's via the agents. How come they are going to sell their policies via branches? See, on the pressure of the government, you are violating all norms, you are creating all sorts of confusion. Now another confusion entered today, that they are going to invest in the form of preference share, and the reason is very simple, because IDBI tier 1 capital norms are fulfilled, but tier 2 capital norms are not fulfilled. So government is trying to that. See, one thing is very sure, I am asking a very fundamental question. 2014, the IDBI NPAs and the current IDBI NPAs 6 times increase. Why it happened in last 4 years that 6 times IDBI NPAs got increased, and there are 6 more public sector banks whose situation is either inferior or similar to the IDBI bank. Is the LIC 36 crore policyholders' money is used for bailing out
I'm going to come in there. I think you're raising some questions. I think it's only fair I get Zafar Islam to react to them. 1 second, Gaurav Vallabh. Okay, Gaurav Vallabh, you've raised some questions. Let Zafar Islam come in and respond to some of those very quickly. Zafar,
it's a very absurd argument made by Gaurav Vallabh. First of all, you can't go ahead with the trade of the transaction unless there is a approval in place. IRDAI has given approval. So is the SEBI. All they have is talking about the preferential allotment to enhance the tier 2 capital, while the tier 2 capital can be accessed through bond issuance, and tier 1 capital, it will only help the tier 1 capital. So away from that, Mr. Bhilla, let me tell you that you have to see the synergy level between the two organizations. A bank needs an insurance company, insurance needs a bank, and it's a perfect synergy between the two institutions, and it is a very good buy for the LIC, and you have to understand the competency level of the board member of LIC. They see there is a value here, and it's available at cheap pricing, because what is important for all of us to realize, it is the pricing which is important, not what you have raised. Okay. If the pricing makes a point, becomes attractive, then all the other issues which you have raised is irrelevant, because all the approvals are in place, and whatever allegation you have made is absolutely baseless and cannot hold water.
Okay. Just hold that thought, because, you know, while I might agree with a lot of what you said, I don't know if the LIC board acts all that independently that you're trying to make this out to be. And this is not just you, this predates your government, and it has happened in the past as well. But Mr. Nair, I'll come to you, and I'm really confused at what kind of investment this really is. Is it strategic investment that LIC is going to make? Is it a financial investment that LIC is looking to do? Does IDBI Bank make for a good investment for LIC and its policyholders? You know, the political sides are divided on this, but what's your own view? You've been a former regulator. A bank whose total stressed portfolio is estimated to be over 35% of its loans, is that a good synergic fit? Mr. Nair?
You see, the fact that the regulator, yes, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Hello? Yeah, I am not able to comment, on what would be the type of investments they are going to make, whether they would be, it will be a strategic investment or a financial investment. But I would agree with some of the panelists who said that banking is a strategic fit for insurance, because over a period of time the bank insurance challenge has been dominating the sale of insurance products. Although LIC sells most of its policies by the agency model, it is also increasingly selling a lot of the policies through the banking channel also. Therefore, to say that banks do make a strategic fit. The other part is the value itself. I would agree that if the bank is available at a certain valuation, which is good for the LIC, in the long run, even if it is going to be a strategic investment, they could find ways of divesting it at an appropriate time.
Fair enough. Mr. Mathur, come in on that. What's in it for LIC? I mean, it was being justified earlier under the pretext that LIC needed a banking arm and they don't have one, and this is the way they'll get it. But they may not even have management control of the entity, and the regulator, the IRDAI, even as it's approved the deal, says very clearly that LIC will have to pare down their stake over time. So in 5 years or 7 years or 3 years, whenever appropriate, LIC will have to pare down the stake. So if that be the case, it appears to be a purely financial investment and not a strategic investment. So what's in it for LIC then, Mr. Mathur?
The LIC does not manage the companies it has invested in. In this case also, there is a very competent MD, CEO who has joined. They are professional executives running the bank. So LIC will only provide direction and superintendence at the board level, and let the day-to-day running of the bank be looked after by the professional people, professional bankers who have specialized knowledge in this field. So LIC, as Mr. Nair said, there are a lot of synergy in distribution. Even IDBI Bank will also gain, in the sense that a lot of LIC's float money will be passed on to them by way of deposit at various centers. They will also perhaps partner LIC's housing finance arm and AMC. So it could be a win-win situation for both. And once the bank starts picking up and the NPA level across the banking industry is sorted out, because most of it, as I said, are due to macro factors, not really necessarily due to micro factors. So once those factors are managed and banking operating environment increases, all these inputs from LIC will help increase the valuation, which will benefit the policyholders. Whether it takes 3 years, 4 years, 6 years remains to be seen.
Right. Okay. Okay, Mr. Mathur, hold that thought there, because I have a more technical question on LIC's ability to sell, and I'm going to take that to you, Mr. Nair. There are some who justify this deal stating that LIC will get access to IDBI Bank's 2,000 branches all across the country to sell its products. Now, I have a fair idea of how LIC sells policies, and you have more idea than any of us here. Since when did LIC need a bank's branch network to sell insurance policies? LIC has perhaps the most entrenched network of agents who do so.
I think LIC is looking at all distribution channels, apart from the fact that they have a very strong agency channel. Banking channel is also very important to sell insurance products, and therefore I think IDBI's 2,000 branches would also be a good synergy for selling their insurance products.
You believe that there are synergies in this particular transaction. We'll also talk about the role of IRDAI and SEBI and what can we expect from RBI in just a bit. But before we get that side, Zafar Islam, assuming it is a financial investment by LIC, I mean, I'd still like to hear from you on whether it is a financial investment or a strategic investment, because the government went to length to make it appear as a strategic investment, but now for regulatory reasons is making it appear to be a financial investment. But the bigger question is, what are the chances of an IDBI turnaround? You haven't been, like Gaurav Vallabh rightly said, in 4 years you haven't been able to turn around IDBI Bank. So now what makes you believe that with LIC getting majority ownership and you appointing a new MD and CEO, there will be a turnaround turnaround. I mean, isn't it clearly a case of betting on the wrong horse? You haven't been able to sell this asset. You wanted to privatize IDBI Bank. There were no takers. So you've parked this toxic asset in LIC.
Well, it's not a toxic asset, first of all. It's available at a cheap pricing, and for all the policyholders, this investment will definitely earn a good return on their investment. Secondly, it's a strategic
If it was
buy.
available
So,
at a cheap
LIC
price, somebody would have wanted to buy it. No, why did no private player want to buy IDBI Bank? Why was it such an unattractive asset that no one wanted to buy, that eventually you had to sell it to LIC?
No, but let me tell you. Let me ask you one more question. See, the situation in financial market, particularly talking about the PSU banks and private sector banks. See, if you see, even the NPA level of private sector bank has gone up, but if you see the valuation level of private bank has also gone up substantially. So compare the public sector banks and the kind of valuation they are getting, and the private sector banks, the kind of valuation they are achieving through the markets. So definitely, the private sector banks are able to achieve much more purely because of the management they project, that and the flexibility they will have. I am sure that with this kind of a buy from LIC, it will increase the flexibility what IDBI Bank has currently, and that will definitely attract lot more investors for IDBI Bank, and over a period of time, the valuation as well as the price of this stock will definitely go up. And who will be the beneficiary? It's the LIC policyholders. It is the bank shareholders. So it's a win-win situation for both. And let me also tell you, the cost, it's a distribution through a bank network is very cost effective, and LIC will definitely will be the beneficiary of this cost effective mechanism of distribution, besides the existing network of individual they have, the agent they have for the distribution of their financial product, insurance product.
I wish life was that simple, and I hope your optimism does come true on this, because I think people all across the spectrum, policyholders, have raised some really grave concerns on that. But I think Gaurav Vallabh has a point of view, and I think he wants to counter you. Let me just get him in. Gaurav Vallabh?
So I had 2-3 small issues which I want to deliberate with all of the experts here. See, section 27, clause 2, subsection 2, clause 1 categorically says, of the Insurance Act, categorically mentions that you can't have an investment of more than 15%. That's not the violation. I am asking two experts to whom I respect most in the panel. Second question, RBI in its various reports, not only the 2016 but 14, 15, 13, had cautioned the banks that there should not be there is a big concentration risk if insurance and banking sector is going to merge together. And they had cautioned, even Reserve Bank Deputy Governor in his speeches, twice he had mentioned about this particular collision. And the third point, which is very important point, that majority of policyholders of LIC are financially illiterate. Is it fair to put their money into the junk assets? And tomorrow there are 6 more junk assets which were created in last 4 years. Are you going to do the same in the same banks? Because what's the problem? Try to understand. Government is not having capital to support that. Now government is trying to dress the entire transaction in such a manner that a profitable entity's money should be invested in these type of assets. And I am surprised to hear from the sources news that in due course of time, the IDBI Bank shareholding, the LIC shareholding is going to come down. I am asking, who is going to invest in the junk bank? Why Air India disinvestment got failed? You got the failure there. Now you are saying that we are not going to go public because you are damn sure that nobody is going to invest here with your kind of policies. Now you are forcing public sector bank and 38 crore policyholders to put their money in the junk asset. This is not the fair way.
Mr. Gaurav Vallabh,
there is a problem. Why don't government support directly?
1 second, Gaurav. I think Zafar. Okay. Zafar, listen to me. I think, sorry, Gaurav, just listen to me. I think Zafar Islam here has a point of view, and I think he wants to counter you on that. Go ahead, Zafar.
Mr. Vallabh, you must know, because of your inefficiency, because of your poor policy, because of all the bad practices your leadership adopted, Today we are facing the problem, the banks are facing the problem, we are witnessing in bank in situation what it is today purely because this the policy you had adopted, we have just inherited it. This problem inherited by us, not created by us, and we are trying to find the solution which is best in the interest of the
in last
shareholder,
4 years,
interest of the-
why IDBI's
interest of the
NPA got increased
taxpayer.
by 6 times? My
No,
primary question, please react to that.
Taxpayers and
Gaurav Vallabh, Said, allow me to interrupt you there, sir. We've got two experts on the show. They need to get a word in as well. Mr. Nair, there was a point that Mr. Vallabh raised, and he said he wanted the experts on the show to answer, and so only fair that you do it. To your mind, sir, on what basis do you believe that the insurance regulator cleared this transaction? Is it the regulator's job to make exceptions the rule and justify any action of the government? I mean, this 15% clause that there is, which there is a reason why the clause has been put in place, and we've seen 3 exceptions to that particular rule, and again we've seen an exception in this case to justify this investment. In some sense, has the regulator acted as an extended arm of the government, sir? Mr. Nair?
Yeah. See, as he mentioned, 27(2) is there in the IRDAI Act, and the regulator has the power to make the regulation. And 15, there are 3 categories: 10, 12, and 15, based on the total assets under management. If it is up to 1 lakh and up to 2.5 lakhs and about 2.5 lakhs assets under management, the companies can go up to 10, 12 and 15% in individual companies. And then there are sector-wise limits also. So clearly an exception has been made in this case, and the regulator is well within his power to give a exemption to the LIC if they have made an application to the regulator, and it appears in this case that the application was made and the regulator has given an exception. It's a regulation, and the board of the authority has the power to amend the regulation or give exceptions to the regulation. It is not laid down in the act, it is in the regulation, and therefore I think it was well within the right of the regulator to have given the exemption.
Okay, it was within the right of the
Sandeep,
regulator.
can I-
Gaurav
can I
Vallabh, I
have
know
a
you have a
10
finger
second,
raised there. I'll come to you in just a bit because I also want to talk. No. Okay, Gaurav Vallabh, very quickly, just 10 seconds is what I'm giving you.
So Supriya, I just want to inform all our viewers that LIC right now is having 12 board members, 12, and out of 12, Supriya, 9 are government employees, because 5 are functional directors, 1 is the CMD of bank, 1 is the CMD of GIC, and 2 are the secretary and additional secretary of finance ministry. So out of 12, 9 are from the representing government, and 3 are something which we call non-official director. So what we expect, the same is the position for the regulator. So they are violating all norms, the institutions are having a dent, and we are putting policyholders' money into the junk bank. Is it fair? That's what I am saying.
No, but LIC board has not been constituted by this government. No, LIC board was like this since a very long time. You could have changed that when you were in power. But Mr. Mathur, do you want to react to that specific point, the composition of the board and how it is perhaps incapable of taking a really independent, autonomous decision? And I also want to ask you a very quick question though. IRDAI may have cleared it, but how likely is it that RBI is going to clear this deal as well? It has in the past opposed a bank for LIC. So 2 questions there, Mr. Mathur.
The RBI, there is a visible shift in policies. Earlier they had a diversified or distributed pattern of ownership of banks and entities under their control. Recently they have allowed a private bank, I think Catholic Syrian Bank, majority stake to be acquired by one single entity, which is not even Indian, which is NRI, but well respected, very well reputed. So from that point of view, I would not expect RBI to create any hurdle. So far as SEBI's thing is concerned, SEBI should be more concerned with whether majority shareholding being acquired, there should be an option to the public retail shareholder to find exit, which they can enforce by not giving exemption to LIC for making a public offer, which should not be create much problem, because as has been reported, there are only 5% retail shareholding.
Okay.
And to answer a specific question, I would only say that in the past also IRDAI has allowed exemption only to LIC to acquire more than 15%. Sometime around 2000 or thereabouts,
Yes.
Corporation Bank 27% shares of Corporation Bank.
Yes,
were
Mr. Mathur, I take
acquired
that
by
point.
LIC, which was far above 15%.
Sure, I take that point. The exception was made in the case of Corporation Bank and in the case of Axis Bank, if I'm not wrong. So there have been exceptions made. Is that the right thing to do? Is what we need to debate. But Syed of Islam, flagging off the question that Supriya asked Mr. Mathur as well, flagging off a contagion risk. The RBI has for years opposed a banking foray of LIC. Can we at least expect the banking regulator to now be independent and red flag this transaction? I mean, at the end of the day, the RBI declared that LIC was not fit and proper for a new bank license just a few years ago. So can it today allow LIC to acquire 51% stake and majority ownership in a bank?
See, I mean, I can't speak for RBI, but as Mr. Mathur has very clearly stated that he doesn't see a hurdle nor that I see a hurdle, purely because there is a strategic fit and there is a meeting of mind between two important institutions, and which is strategic of this nature, and it serves purpose for both the organization. And I think RBI will buy this argument, see the rationale of investment and the reason why the LIC board has taken this decision to invest. And I'm sure that will not become a bottleneck, and RBI will definitely understand the rationale and give its approval as well.
Mr. Nair, will IRDAI be this flexible when it comes to giving exemptions to private insurers as well? I mean, how are we going to justify that there will be these two sets of rules, one for LIC, the state-owned insurance giant, and another set of rules for the private sector guys?
You see, the manner in which the total insurance industry is now positioned, LIC sits on more than 72% of the total assets, and therefore the kind of funds available with LIC is not available with any other private sector player. The second largest insurance player is I think ICICI Prudential with about 1,40,000 crores. So LIC is sitting on about 30 lakh crores of assets. So, and therefore the LIC is a different kind of an entity. It dominates the life insurance industry, and it is also dominating the even today it has the largest share of the premium. It has got a very good brand, and they have been doing very well in a competitive market. Therefore, LIC is a different entity by itself.
Nair saying that LIC is too big an entity, it's a different entity, and so you can justify different set of rules. They're running out of time. Closing comments to the two politicians on the panel. 30 seconds to you, Gaurav Vallabh. First up, how does one ring fence LIC from such fiscal adventurism? Today you're opposing it. Tomorrow, if you were to be in government, you might do something similar. So how does one ring fence the institution from such fiscal adventurism?
Sandeep, me and my party, we are having a firm belief that issues comes, take the problem from the front. Don't do the financial tricks. It doesn't work in long term. It exaggerates the problem, and that is the mistake the government is doing in this issue. What they are trying to do, just to save their fiscal deficit target, just to improve their disinvestment target, they are making or designing the entire transaction via LIC. That's not the right way. I am telling 6 more banks, and I am categorically mentioning 6 more PSBs are having more worst issues than IDBI. is LIC going to invest there? No. I want it should not. I want it should not. The government should provide capital support, or we have to do something else, because government had miserably failed in attracting the private investment.
Okay.
I think
I have a quick question. Okay, Gaurav Vallabh, I'm sorry, I'll have to cut you short there. I'm really running over on this show. And Zafar Islam, a quick last word to you. Do such reckless actions erode the trust of policyholders in an institution like LIC? You may justify it saying that there is great synergy. The policyholder out there doesn't quite sound convinced.
say reckless. It's not at all a reckless decision. Secondly, it's not that the government of India is imposing its diktat to LIC board to take an approval and invest in IDBI Bank. It is the IDBI, it is the LIC board which they think that it is a very good investment opportunity given the price of IDBI Bank currently ruling in the market. It's a market, it's something which is market, it's a listed entity. You know what is the price in the market, and in terms of valuation, I'm sure it is available at a very cheap pricing. And the board has decided. It's not that we are insisting them to invest. So it is very unfair to speak what Gaurav Bhalla was speaking. And secondly, we have adopted a policy of non-interference. We have never interfered in the working of any financial institution, unlike in the past where Congress leadership was interfering with all the institutions.
Zafar, I'm not sure people are going to buy.
ONGC and HPCL, no. You cannot convince me because I don't know what was ONGC and HPCL, and which is why I'm not entirely convinced on LIC and IDBI also. Having said that, I think Sandeep wants to make a point there.
Yeah, completely timed out then on this edition. I'm afraid we've got another debate coming up. Thanks for putting all the points of view across on the need or the lack of one for this particular transaction. Zafar Islam, Gaurav Vallabh, S.B. Mathur and Mr. Nair, appreciate you taking the time out and joining us on the show. The panel believes that the government, or at least majority in the panel, believe that the government has acted in good faith, the LIC board has acted in good faith, the insurance regulator has acted in good faith, and hopefully RBI and SEBI will also act in good faith. Do the policy holders of LIC see it that way? That's the big question, isn't it?
Indeed, but on that note, we'll slip into a really short break. Coming up next is another fascinating discussion on ICICI Bank. The conflict of interest charges and allegations now seem very minuscule because what we could perhaps be staring at is a full-blown banking scam. We come back and put the spotlight on ICICI Bank in a moment from now. Stay right here with us.